Let's talk about state-owned enterprises now and huge budget allocations. These entities are run. It has a direct impact on South Africans and the economy. It takes a lot of taxpayers' money to keep them going. So constant changes in management at a utility like Eskom over the years, and now recently this past week as well, it continues to impact our daily lives. So now there is the appointment of Mteto Nyati as Eskom chairperson. Public Interest SA say they have confidence in this, even that he has a stellar track record, and it's hoping he'll bring some much needed stability at the power utility. Well, from Public Interest SA, it's their chairperson, Tebogo Khaas, joining us this afternoon. Tebogo, good to have you on eNCA. Why is this a stellar track record? Why are you telling South Africans that? How do you know that?
To be able to... Shouldn't be telling South Africans. By now, I'm sure South Africans all know about Mr. Nyati's track record insofar as him being able to turn around distressed, if I may call them that, as assets. And he has done it in many instances, from IBM, Altron, MTN, and Microsoft itself. There's been business units at IBM that he was able to make sure that it becomes more profitable, and IBM found itself in the doldrums, having to move away from hardware to software space. So, and with regards to Eskom itself, Eskom is also in the doldrums, although, albeit in the past few months, we've seen some stability from the board perspective. And it takes a collective, remember, it's not an individual who will be able to turn around and a behemoth like Eskom. It takes a whole team. And I think the entirety of the board, if you look at it, they are very capable men and women who will be able to ensure that they provide a complement to each one of them, to ensure that they actually put the utility on the sound footing. Maybe I'm an eternal optimist, but I think we're already beginning to see some positive things coming out of Eskom, and indeed it can only get better. And even his presence at Eskom for the past, I can't remember how many months, a year, I don't know, we've seen with his involvement, especially with regards to the operational part of it. We've seen generation improving. There's been some stability. You and I, we do get frustrated when we see level 6, but I think we've enjoyed some good innings insofar as being limited to level 2, and we hope that gets sustained. And some of the plans that have been mothballed have been put back into use. Even the performance on those that were non-performing, we seem to have seen some improvements, if it can only be sustained. Obviously, you cannot predict the system. There are a lot of factors that constrain generation, or factors that could affect generation and even transmission, and God forbid, bad weather and other things. But we've had a good performance during the winter. I
suppose that could be a bit of a danger, can't it, Tebogo? Forgive me, let me come in. I suppose that's a bit of a danger when it comes to anyone who's going to be essentially making decisions on behalf of Eskom and making decisions for Eskom. A lot of it is not really within their power. First of all, as a chairperson, as an executive member of Eskom, you're going to have political interference. You're going to have ministers directly interfering with you, A, and B, you can't always know what the grid is going to do. You might be setting Tebogo, you might be setting him up for failure, Mteto.
No, absolutely, which is why at the beginning I framed it says that it's a collective effort. It is shouldn't be left to an individual. We cannot attribute the failures or even the successes to an individual, because it is not. And yes, you're quite right when you talk about the governance from a governance perspective. It is not an ideal situation where we find a minister having to have the final say as to who gets appointed, but it's how the system works. If the system says that you're going to have 3 people recommended and the minister must appoint amongst the 3, that's how it is. We've seen it happen in many other appointments in the public sector. And if we don't like that, maybe we should agitate for the change in that system, because it might very well be that there are reasons why that was first introduced. And it is not for the chairperson of Eskom to decide as to how final appointments should be made. That is the structure that he also finds in place, or the arrangement that he finds in place, with the shareholder representative having the final say. But it's not only even the shareholder representative himself, it's cabinet that are going to deliberate over it and make sure that the recommendation gets discussed and approved. So it's not an ideal situation. we obviously would have wished for a situation where the board itself make an assessment in terms of the needs of the company and who would be the suitable or ideal candidate to fill the shoes of the CEO. And then upon such assessment, being able to make an appointment, and then it ends there.
Yeah.
But to the extent that that is not the case, when I have to make do with what is prevailing.
Mteto, how do we judge? How do we judge Mteto in a case like this as the new chairperson of Eskom? How do we try and rate him? Imagine this was a matric certificate. What's the KPIs? What are we supposed to be looking for as the public in the next 6 months to a year, this forever moving goal and this target of Eskom? How are we supposed to judge him if he's doing a good job or not? What are we looking for?
Yeah, it would be unfair to judge an individual, Gareth. I always keep on gravitating. So it's all a collective, because otherwise we'd be setting up a particular individual for failure when the success should be shared by everybody and the failure should be for everybody. But yes, there are certain metrics that we could look at him to ensure that, first of all, there's board cohesion and board performance. In other words, is the board performing up to the expectations that would have been set? And if all it takes, then it means he as a chairperson, being the glue of the entirety of the board, can then be able to say, okay, we are doing well insofar as these areas are concerned. But there are certain things, as you alluded, that are outside of his control. He cannot control what level and intensity of the influence or interference that might happen. And I'm not suggesting that there will be or there won't be. But the fact of the matter is they cannot control extraneous factors where ministers make other pronouncements that are beyond the board's control or remit. But to the extent that he can control that which he works with, that is the board that has been appointed prior, that complements him and others, then certainly how he managed to create the harmony, make sure that you actually even inspire the management team, because it's the management executive that's going to be those who are tasked with the day-to-day running and implementation of the strategy or whatever else that needs to be done at Eskom. And it's not only the executive, even the line managers and in the plans themselves. But we've seen that those improvements already even during Mkomakwana's tenure, where we've seen that even the much of the control or management decisions have been devolved down to the plans themselves, where they are able to make sure that they get to report on the resources that they've been assigned to manage and deliver or generate electricity from.
Let me ask you this, Tebogo. Let me ask you this in closing, Tebogo. What would your timeline be? Talk to us South Africans from what's your timeline here for the new chairperson? 3 months, 6 months? We're told originally, I had an interview with the electricity minister, we were told blackouts would be gone by the end of December. That's now moved into next year as well. So give me a timeline at which point we say Mteto Nyati is not the right person.
Even beyond the minister, you know what President, then was Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa said. He made his own predictions many a times and he's failed woefully. And all we can say is that we just hope that the stars align. We just hope that everything that needs to be done at Eskom gets to be done. But to the extent that we've got the people with the right aptitude and the right attitude and commitment and zeal to make sure that they're corrected. And I think that's what we should leave the rest of the elements and see what needs to be done. But I think we've got the right team. And I'm quite hopeful that with all the green shots that we've already seen, we should be able to see some stability. I'm not an engineer. I'm not involved in the coalface. I do not know what's happening at Eskom. So I cannot be in a position to say in 6 months, in 12 months. But we take every day as it goes. Today, only load shedding too. It has been for the past times, and some days no load shedding at all during the day. So let's enjoy it, but let's support the team, the entirety of the team, not just the chair, not just the committee leaders or chair people, but let's support them as an entirety and make sure that we rally behind Eskom managers and even junior employees at Eskom to make sure
pretty much everybody who is able to keep our lights on, I think, does need the support as well. I think South Africans, though, Tebogo, are tired of giving support to an entity that doesn't seem to get it right. Hopefully, maybe you're right. Who knows? Maybe Tebogo Khaas from Public Interest SA, you're the chairperson there. Hopefully you're right about the Eskom chairperson, the new Eskom chairperson, Mteto Nyati. We'll wait to see, of course. Tebogo, always good talking to you. I'm sure you and I will talk again in the not too distant future. They're taking us up to 4:45.